The tiny voice recorder weighed exactly 3.2 ounces, but in Jasmine Washington's palm, it felt heavier than her father's casket had been 6 months ago. She pressed the silver button click and whispered the date, time, and Michigan Penal Code Section 750.145. Cyberbullying resulting in death. 4,000 teenagers filled Lincoln High School's auditorium that October morning. Their chatter bouncing off concrete walls painted the color of old nickels. Mrs. Pierce stood at the podium adjusting her pearl necklace, preparing to deliver the mandatory anti-bullying assembly that state law required twice per year. The irony wasn't lost on Jasmine, not when the principal's own daughter ran the most sophisticated extortion ring in Detroit's history. Jasmine touched the recorder through her hoodie pocket, a nervous habit she'd developed since her father's death. David Washington had been many things: a brilliant lawyer, a devoted father, a man who believed the law could save anyone if you knew how to use it. He'd taught her to memorize statutes the way other fathers taught their daughters to ride bikes. "Evidence is everything," he'd say, spreading case files across their kitchen table. But timing, baby girl timing, is the verdict. The hoodie itself had been his. Navy blue, Georgetown Law School, embroidered in fading gray letters. It still smelled faintly of his cologne and the peppermint tea he drank during late-night case prep. Jasmine pulled it tighter around her shoulders as Madison Pierce strutted down the aisle, her designer boots clicking against linoleum like a countdown. Madison Pierce had turned 18 3 weeks ago. Legal adult. That distinction mattered in ways the blonde girl with the predator's smile couldn't possibly understand yet. But she would. Soon. "Look who's hiding in Daddy's old clothes again." Madison's voice carried that special frequency designed to make others feel small. Her crew flanked her Tyler Brooks with his prosecutor father's swagger. Ashley Chen, whose parents' political donations bought more than just computer lab upgrades. And Jake Morrison, 19 and still in high school because assault charges had interrupted his junior year. Jasmine kept her eyes forward, counting. 3.7 seconds of verbal harassment. Michigan law required 5 seconds for actionable verbal assault. Madison always stopped at 4. "Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats." Mrs. Pierce's voice echoed through scratchy speakers. "Today's assembly on our zero-tolerance bullying policy will begin momentarily." The bitter laugh almost escaped Jasmine's throat. Zero tolerance. The same woman who'd written unsubstantiated on 43 bullying reports this semester alone. The same woman whose daughter had built a cryptocurrency empire on other students' humiliation and fear. Jasmine had the evidence. All of it. 3 months of investigation packed into encrypted files. Backed up in 4 locations, including one her father's former partner. Attorney Maria Gonzalez, kept in a safety deposit box, screenshots of blockchain transactions, recordings of threats, victim testimonies notarized and filed, everything building to this moment, this assembly, this carefully orchestrated legal trap. Madison slid into the row behind Jasmine, close enough that her breath disturbed the small hairs on Jasmine's neck. "Nice recorder in your pocket. Planning to snitch like your daddy did." The words hit their target. They always did. David Washington had died investigating a trafficking ring with connections to several prominent Detroit families. The police called it a single-car accident. The skid marks suggested otherwise. 3 weeks before his death, he'd received death threats for representing a teenager who'd been blackmailed with intimate photos. The same kind of photos Madison's crew specialized in. "Careful with your words, Madison," Jasmine said quietly, her finger finding the recorder's button. "You just turned 18. Adult charges hit different." Madison laughed, that crystalline sound that probably charmed teachers and terrified victims in equal measure. "Oh, please, like you'd have the guts. You used to captain the mock trial team. Remember, before you turned into this pathetic ghost wearing dead daddy's clothes? It was true. Before her father's death, Jasmine had been different, louder, brighter. She'd won state championships in debate, planned to follow her father's footsteps to law school. Now she sat in the back of classrooms, hood up, watching, listening, recording. Besides, Tyler leaned forward, his phone screen reflecting off his glasses. Everyone knows Michigan is a one-party consent state for recordings. We're not stupid. No, Jasmine agreed, checking her phone's clock. You're not stupid, just sloppy. The assembly began with a video, diverse teenagers hugging. Statistics about cyberbullying deaths scrolling past in somber fonts. Jasmine had seen Sophie Patel's face in those statistics, though the girl was sitting 3 rows up, very much alive despite the deep fake pornography that had nearly driven her to change her mind about that. Malik Johnson sat near the exit, his shoulders still curved inward from when locker room photos had circulated with price tags attached. Carlos Mendez hadn't come to school at all. The threats to out him to his religious parents had escalated last week. All of them had come to Jasmine eventually. Word traveled in whispers. The quiet girl in the hoodie knew the law. She could help. She would listen. She wouldn't judge. What they didn't know was that each conversation had been legally documented with written consent. Each piece of evidence catalogued with the methodical precision her father had taught her. Build your case like a pyramid, he used to say. Wide foundation, pointed argument. Mrs. Pierce droned on about reporting procedures, safe spaces, trusted adults. Madison's crew passed phones back and forth behind Jasmine, probably managing their empire in real time. The encrypted apps they used Signal, Telegram. Custom-built platforms felt secure to them. They didn't know Ashley's habit of backing everything up to the school's servers, just in case. They didn't know those servers had been mirrored last night. Under a federal warrant, Detective Andre Williams had secured based on Jasmine's evidence package. The thing about cyberbullying, Mrs. Pierce read from her legally approved script, is that it leaves permanent scars on young souls. Speaking of scars, Madison whispered, reaching for Jasmine's hood. Let's see if you're still crying under there. The touch was light at first testing. Jasmine didn't react. In her pocket. The recorder captured everything. The live stream app on her phone, hidden but active, broadcasted to a secure server where Attorney Gonzalez and 2 FBI agents monitored in real time. 3 months of planning, 87 pages of evidence, 47 victim affidavits, 4 federal agencies coordinating, all for this moment. Madison's fingers curled around the hood's edge. What's wrong? Don't want everyone to see you crying over Daddy. I haven't cried since the funeral, Jasmine said, her voice steady as a court reporter's. But you might want to check your crypto wallet. Tyler, the one you think is anonymous? Tyler's typing stuttered. On stage. Mrs. Pierce continued reading statistics about teenage suicide rates, oblivious to the drama unfolding in What did you... Tyler started. Nothing yet, Jasmine interrupted. But federal asset forfeiture is fascinating. Did you know cryptocurrency used in crimes against children can be seized before conviction? The warrant just needs probable cause. You're bluffing, Ashley hissed. But her fingers flew across her phone screen. Am I? Check wallet address 3FKK962. Jasmine rattled off the first digits from memory. Oh, wait. It should show 0 balance as of... She checked her phone. 43 minutes ago. The gasp from Tyler confirmed what Jasmine already knew. The FBI had frozen their assets based on the evidence she'd provided. Step 1 of many. Madison's grip on the hoodie tightened. You little... Choose your next words carefully, Jasmine said, still facing forward. Assault on a federal witness carries a 5-year minimum sentence. And yes, Madison, I am a federal witness. Have been since Tuesday when I testified to the grand jury. The words hung in the air like a judge's gavel waiting to fall. Around them, students watched the anti-bullying video, unaware that real justice was about to unfold in Row J. You're lying! Madison's voice cracked the first time Jasmine had ever heard uncertainty there. Federal case number 2024 CF 11847, Jasmine recited, United States versus Madison Pierce, Tyler Brooks, Ashley Chen, Jake Morrison, and 19 co-conspirators. Charges include interstate trafficking of child exploitation material, wire fraud, money laundering, and violation of the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. Jake stood abruptly. I'm out of here. Sit down, Jake. Jasmine didn't turn around. Leaving now violates your probation terms. Officer Martinez is stationed at the south exit. Officer Washington, no relation, has the north. FBI agents are in the main office with warrants. It was beautiful, really, how the law worked when you understood it. Her father had taught her that justice was like classical music. Every note had to be perfect, every timing precise, building to a crescendo that felt both surprising and inevitable. Madison yanked the hood hard enough to hurt. You destroyed everything. Do you know what you've done? For the first time, Jasmine turned. Madison's face had gone pale beneath her perfect makeup. Her blue eyes wide with the dawning realization that money and connections couldn't fix this. That Principal Pierce couldn't make this disappear. That 18 meant adult court, adult charges, adult consequences. I know exactly what I've done, Jasmine said. I've documented 1,400 hours of criminal conspiracy. I've preserved evidence of 47 victims across 6 states, making this federal jurisdiction. I've recorded every threat, every transaction, every cover-up. She paused, letting the weight of preparation sink in, including the conversation we're having right now. She pulled out the recorder, its red light blinking steadily. But that wasn't what made Madison step back. It was the phone in Jasmine's other hand, showing a live stream with over 200 viewers. The FBI seal was clearly visible in the corner of the screen. Smile, Madison, Jasmine said softly. You're on federal surveillance, and this assembly is being broadcast to the Joint Task Force investigating your mother's connection to your enterprise. Did you really think she didn't know all those complaints buried? All those victims silenced? That's public corruption. RICO predicates. 20 years minimum. Tyler dropped his phone. It clattered on the floor, the sound sharp as handcuffs clicking shut. Ashley was crying silent tears that smeared her eyeliner. Jake sat frozen, probably calculating whether violating probation or federal charges carried a lighter sentence. Madison's hand was still tangled in the hoodie when she leaned close, desperation replacing arrogance. Please. You don't understand. My mom made me, she said if I didn't help cover things up, she'd— Stop talking, Jasmine advised, not unkindly. Anything you say is being recorded and will be used against you. You have the right to remain silent. Use it. The anti-bullying video reached its climax, a mother crying over her daughter's suicide note. The timing was accidentally perfect. Madison released the hoodie like it burned her fingers. My dad's dead because of people like you, Jasmine continued, her voice carrying now. Other students were starting to notice the confrontation. He died trying to protect kids from predators who thought money made them untouchable. But here's what he taught me. The law doesn't care about your last name or your bank account. Evidence is evidence. Crime is crime. And justice? She stood slowly. Justice might be slow, but it's inevitable. The auditorium doors opened. Not dramatically, federal agents rarely did drama. They walked down the aisles in navy windbreakers. FBI emblazoned in yellow letters. Their movements efficient and practiced. Students gasped. Phones appeared. The assembly dissolved into chaos. Mrs. Pierce's voice crackled through the speakers. "Students, please, remain calm," and the microphone cut out. One agent had reached the stage. "Madison Pierce." Agent Sullivan's voice carried without amplification. "You're under arrest for violations of federal law. You have the right to remain silent." But Jasmine had turned away. Her part was done. The whisper that had started everything, the mention of FBI surveillance, the federal witness status, the case number had worked exactly as planned. They'd run straight into the trap she'd spent 3 months building. She sank back into her seat as chaos erupted around her. Madison was crying now, ugly sobs that probably hadn't escaped her since elementary school. Tyler tried to bargain, offering information about others involved. Ashley had gone silent, her genius brain probably already calculating plea deals. Jake didn't resist when they cuffed him, just muttered something about knowing this day would come. Students filmed everything. Within minutes, it would be viral. The headline would write itself, "Principal's daughter arrested in FBI raid during anti-bullying assembly." The irony was sharp enough to cut. But Jasmine didn't feel victorious. She felt empty, tired. She closed her eyes and saw her father's face. Heard his voice, "The law isn't about revenge, baby girl. It's about balance, making things right." Had she made things right, 47 victims would get justice. The money, nearly $500,000 extorted from terrified teenagers, would be returned. The photos, videos, and threats would be destroyed under court order. Madison's crew would face consequences that money couldn't erase. But her father was still dead. She was still alone in a house that echoed with his absence. The hoodie still smelled like him, but fainter each day. "Jasmine," a quiet voice interrupted her thoughts. Sophie Patel stood in the aisle, her hands twisted together. Behind her, Malik and several other victims had gathered. "We just wanted to say, thank you." Jasmine nodded, not trusting her voice. "My parents don't know," Sophie continued. "About the photos. Will they have to?" "No," Jasmine assured her. "Victim identities are sealed. You're safe." Safe. Such a simple word for such a complex thing. These students were safe from their tormentors, but the scars would last. The fear would linger. Trust would come slowly, if at all. The FBI agents were efficient. Madison and her crew were removed within minutes, leaving behind a stunned student body and a principal whose career had just imploded on stage. Mrs. Pierce stood frozen at the podium, her anti-bullying speech scattered at her feet like fallen leaves. "Students," Vice Principal Chen took the microphone, "please return to your regular classes. Counselors will be available for anyone who needs to talk." The assembly dissolved slowly, students moving like sleepwalkers. Jasmine stayed seated, her recorder still running. Evidence, always evidence. "Miss Washington," Agent Sullivan appeared beside her. "We'll need your formal statement." "Attorney Gonzalez has copies of everything," Jasmine said. "Chain of custody maintained throughout. All recordings made legally under Michigan's one-party consent statute. Victim testimonies obtained with written permission." The agent smiled slightly. "Your father trained you well." "He trained me to survive," Jasmine corrected. This was just survival. But was it more than that? As she finally stood to leave, Jasmine caught her reflection in a dark window. The girl looking back wore her father's hoodie like armor, carried his recorder like a sword. She'd walked into a den of predators and emerged victorious, not through violence, but through meticulous preparation and an understanding of the law that most lawyers would envy. Maybe that's what justice looked like, not grand gestures or dramatic confrontations, but quiet determination and careful documentation. Maybe her father's death hadn't been meaningless if it led to protecting 47 other children from harm. The hallway was nearly empty when Jasmine finally left the auditorium. Word had spread quickly. Students gave her a wide berth, unsure whether to treat her as hero or pariah. She'd violated the unspoken rule of high school: don't involve adults. Don't bring in outsiders. Handle things internally. But some things were too big to handle internally. Some crimes too serious for detention or suspension. Sometimes, the system needed to intervene. Her phone buzzed Attorney Gonzalez. "Just watch the live stream. Your father would be so proud." The grand jury issued 17 additional indictments based on evidence recovered from the school's servers. "This is bigger than we thought." Bigger. Of course it was. These things always were. Weren't they? Pull one thread and the whole tapestry unraveled, revealing patterns of abuse and complicity that reached higher than anyone wanted to admit. "Jasmine," Gonzalez continued, "the FBI wants to expand the investigation. There are similar rings in other schools, other states. They want you to consult." Consult? At 17. She was being asked to help federal agents take down criminal enterprises. The mock trial champion had become a real player in the justice system, armed with her father's knowledge and her own pain-forged determination. "Can I think about it?" Jasmine asked. "Of course. Take your time. But Jasmine, what you did today, it matters. Those kids are free because of you." Free. There was that word again, simple and complex simultaneously. Madison wasn't free. She'd be in federal custody within hours. Her crew faced years behind bars. Mrs. Pierce would likely join them once the public corruption charges were filed. But Sophie could walk the halls without fear. Malik could change in the locker room without wondering if cameras were recording. Carlos could come back to school knowing his secrets were safe. 47 teenagers could reclaim their lives. The recorder in her pocket had stopped at the 2-hour mark. 2 hours of evidence that would be transcribed, analyzed, and entered into federal record. Every word Madison had said, every threat made, every admission of guilt, preserved forever. The Detroit Free Press ran the story above the fold the next morning. FBI raids high school assembly principal's daughter, arrested in multi-state cybercrime ring. By noon, CNN had picked it up. By evening, Jasmine Washington's name was trending, though she'd refused all interview requests. The spotlight felt nothing like winning mock trial championships. This glare burned. She sat in Attorney Maria Gonzalez's office, surrounded by bankers' boxes filled with 3 months of evidence. Outside, October rain painted the windows with long tears, fitting weather for the aftermath of justice. "The grand jury returned 43 indictments this morning," Gonzalez said, sliding a document across the mahogany desk. "Madison Pierce faces 15 federal counts. If convicted on all charges, she's looking at 60 years. 60 years? Madison was 18. The math was sobering. What about the others? Tyler Brooks, money laundering and wire fraud. His father already hired Kellerman and Associates." Gonzalez's mouth twisted. "Ashley Chen took a cooperation deal. She's providing passwords, explaining their whole operation. Jake Morrison violated federal probation. He's going straight to adult facility." Jasmine traced her finger along the indictment pages. So many names. Some she recognized students who had participated willingly, profiting from others' humiliation. Others were surprises: a substitute teacher who'd provided access to school databases, a security guard who'd disabled cameras for cash. And Mrs. Pierce? Public corruption, conspiracy, RICO. The FBI found $200,000 in cryptocurrency transfers to her campaign fund. She knew everything and profited from it. Gonzalez leaned back. She was using her own daughter to fund her political ambitions. The revelation shouldn't have surprised Jasmine, but it did. Parents were supposed to protect their children, not weaponize them. But then, parents were supposed to live long enough to see their daughters graduate. 2. There's more, Gonzalez continued. The investigation uncovered similar operations in 12 other schools across 6 states. They're calling it Operation Digital Shield. The Attorney General wants you to address Congress about youth cybercrime. Congress. Jasmine almost laughed. 6 months ago, she'd been planning prom themes. Now they wanted her to testify before lawmakers about the intersection of technology and child exploitation. I just wanted them to stop, Jasmine said quietly. I just wanted justice for the victims. You got more than that. Gonzalez pulled up news footage on her laptop. 3 copycat investigations started today. Schools are implementing new digital safety protocols. You've changed how we think about cyberbullying. On screen, protesters gathered outside Lincoln High, demanding Principal Pierce's immediate termination. Parents who'd dismissed their children's complaints for years suddenly demanded accountability. The school board had called an emergency meeting. Jasmine's phone buzzed her mother, texting from her 3rd job. Saw the news? Dad would be proud. Home late tonight. Leftovers in fridge. Love you. Those simple words hit harder than any headline. Her mother had aged 10 years in the 6 months since David Washington's death. The life insurance battle continued. Suspicious death meant delayed payments. Patricia Washington worked constantly now, leaving Jasmine alone most evenings in their too-quiet house. The victims want to meet with you, Gonzalez said gently. When you're ready. Some want to thank you. Others just want to talk to someone who understands. Understand. Did she, Jasmine, understood the law? The procedures, the constitutional protections. But did she understand the weight Sophie Patel carried? Knowing those images existed somewhere in the digital ether forever, did she understand Malik's hypervigilance in locker rooms now? The way he changed in bathroom stalls? Did she understand Carlos's relief mixed with terror that his truth was simultaneously protected and weaponized? Set it up, Jasmine decided, but somewhere safe, neutral. The community center on Woodward. Thursday evening. Jasmine nodded, already dreading and needing it in equal measure. The next week's blurred together depositions, evidence reviews, security protocols. The FBI assigned her a protection detail after death threats appeared online. Madison's supporters, and there were supporters. Even for monsters blamed Jasmine for ruining lives and destroying futures. She wanted to scream at them. What about the 47 futures Madison's crew destroyed? What about Sophie's scholarship, chances diminished by trauma? What about Malik's therapy bills? What about Carlos, who still hadn't returned to school? But screaming wasn't strategic. Her father had taught her that. Instead, she prepared. The congressional hearing was set for November 15th. She wrote and rewrote her testimony, each draft revealing new layers of the crisis. This wasn't just about Lincoln High or Madison Pierce. This was about a generation growing up where humiliation was currency and privacy was fiction. The victim meeting came first. Thursday, 6 p.m. Rain still falling like Detroit's sky was grieving too. The community center smelled of coffee and industrial disinfectant. 43 people showed up, not all 47 victims, but enough. Their ages ranged from 14 to 19. Some came with parents, others alone. Sophie Patel spoke first, her voice barely above whisper. I tried to kill myself. Twice. The second time. I Googled your dad's law firm, found out he'd died. Almost seemed like a sign. You know that nobody could help. The room held its breath. But then kids started whispering about you. How you knew the law. How you were building something. I thought it was just talk until you asked for my written consent to document my case. Sophie lifted her eyes. That's when I knew someone was finally listening. One by one, they shared. Not details, Jasmine had those documented already. They shared feelings, the helplessness, the shame that wasn't theirs to carry but clung anyway. The relief when FBI agents confirmed the images would be destroyed. The fear that somehow, somewhere, copies survived. I haven't slept through the night in 8 months, Malik admitted. Every notification makes me panic. Is it happening again? Are there more pictures? My parents still don't know, Carlos added. They think I'm at tutoring right now. I'm not ready to tell them I'm gay. But Madison was going to make that choice for me. For 50 Bitcoin. The price tags on their dignity. The monetization of their pain. Madison's crew had run their operation like a Fortune 500 company, quarterly projections, client databases, profit margins calculated in human misery. What happens at the trial? Someone asked. Will we have to testify? Only if you choose to, Jasmine assured them. The physical evidence is comprehensive. Your statements are sealed unless you decide otherwise. I want to testify, Sophie declared, surprising everyone, including herself. I want to look Madison in the eye and tell her what she did. I want the judge to see who she hurt. Others nodded, the silenced finding their voices. The meeting ran 3 hours. When it ended, Jasmine felt emptied and filled simultaneously. These weren't just case numbers anymore. They were people rebuilding themselves after someone had tried to demolish their foundations. Outside, Detective Andre Williams waited by an unmarked car. He'd worked cyber crimes for 15 years, but Jasmine could see this case had affected him. Your protection detail reported no issues, he said, opening the door for her. Though there's something you should know. Madison Pierce wants to meet with you. Her lawyer reached out. Jasmine's stomach clenched. Why, claims she has information about your father's death. Says she'll only share it with you. The rain intensified, drumming against the windshield like urgent Morse code. Her father's death. The accident that wasn't. The investigation that went nowhere. The questions that multiplied in darkness. It's probably manipulation, Williams continued. But I'm obligated to inform you. Set it up, Jasmine heard herself say. Full recording. Her lawyer present. Federal marshals in the room. Williams nodded, unsurprised. He'd learned what Jasmine's father had known. She didn't back down from hard truths. The meeting happened 3 days later in a federal holding facility in downtown Detroit. The walls were beige, the table bolted to the floor, the chairs uncomfortable by design. Madison Pierce entered in orange scrubs and shackles, her blonde hair flat against her skull, her face naked without makeup. She looked younger, smaller, more human. You destroyed my life, Madison said without preamble. No, Jasmine replied calmly. You destroyed your life. I just documented it. Madison's lawyer, an exhausted-looking public defender, placed a warning hand on his client's arm. Miss Pierce has information regarding David Washington's death. In exchange, she wants consideration at sentencing. That's the prosecutor's decision, not mine, Jasmine said, but her hands trembled beneath the table. Madison leaned forward, chains clinking. My mother met with Thomas Morrison, Jake's father, 2 days before your dad's accident. I was there. They discussed the trafficking case your father was building. Morrison said he had connections who could handle problems permanently. The room's temperature seemed to drop. Jasmine forced herself to breathe normally. The recorder captured everything. Evidence. Always evidence. Mom gave him your father's schedule, his route to work, his car details. Madison's voice cracked. I didn't know what they were planning. Not until I saw the news. Single car accident. No witnesses. Why tell me now? Jasmine managed. Because I'm already finished. 60 years, they're saying. My life is over at 18. Madison laughed bitterly. But maybe yours doesn't have to be. Maybe you can get actual justice, not just legal victories. The information was forwarded to appropriate authorities. Thomas Morrison's connections unraveled quickly, a network of corrupt cops, paid witnesses, and professional fixers. Within 2 weeks, 3 arrests were made in connection with David Washington's murder. Not an accident. Murder. Jasmine stood at her father's grave when she got the call. November wind scattered dead leaves across the cemetery. She'd brought fresh flowers, yellow roses. His favorite. We got them, Detective Williams said simply. Full confessions. Your father was killed because he was days away from exposing a trafficking ring worth millions. Madison's information was accurate. She should have felt something. Vindication. Closure. Peace. Instead, she felt the hollow echo of Pyrrhic victory. Her father was still gone. Justice couldn't resurrect the dead. Thank you, she whispered to both Williams and the gravestone. The congressional hearing came next. November 15th, a Tuesday that felt like standing at history's intersection. The room was smaller than movies suggested, but cameras made it infinite. Representatives from both parties attended, their faces grave as Jasmine was sworn in. My name is Jasmine Washington, she began, her voice carrying her father's training. I'm 17 years old. 6 months ago, my father was murdered for protecting children from cyber exploitation. Today, I'm here to tell you that every school in America likely has a Madison Pierce. The only difference is whether they've been caught. For 40 minutes, she laid out the crisis, not just statistics, though she had those memorized. She told stories, Sophie's suicide attempts, Malik's panic attacks, Carlos's stolen coming out. She explained the cryptocurrency networks, the encrypted apps, the adult complicity that enabled teenage predators. We teach children about stranger danger, Jasmine continued, but their classmates are trafficking their most vulnerable moments for profit. We install metal detectors for weapons, but ignore the phones that destroy lives without firing a shot. She proposed solutions: mandatory digital literacy, federal oversight of school cybersecurity, protection for minor whistleblowers, funding for counseling services, but most importantly, she proposed changing how society viewed digital harm. When Madison Pierce sold Sophie Patel's photos, she didn't just violate privacy, she committed soul murder, killing the person Sophie was, forcing her to rebuild from ashes. Jasmine looked directly at the committee chair. That's not bullying. That's trafficking in human dignity. The law must recognize the difference. The hearing made national news. Within days, 3 senators introduced Jasmine's law, comprehensive reform, addressing youth cyber exploitation. The debate was fierce, but public support was overwhelming. Parents who'd dismissed cyberbullying as kids being kids suddenly understood the stakes. Madison Pierce's trial began in January. Federal court, downtown Detroit. The kind of cold that made bones ache. Jasmine attended every day, sitting behind the prosecution table. Her presence, a silent reminder of consequences. The evidence was overwhelming. Ashley Chen's testimony revealed an operation sophisticated enough to impress organized crime experts. They'd used blockchain tumblers to hide money trails, operated servers in countries without extradition treaties, employed psychological profiles to identify vulnerable targets. "We looked for kids already hurting," Ashley testified, her cooperation deal requiring complete honesty. Foster kids, ones with divorced parents, anyone isolated. Madison said broken people were easier to break completely. Sophie Patel testified on day 3. She wore a blue dress, her voice steady, as she described 8 months of torment. The courtroom was silent, except for her words, and Madison's mother quietly sobbing in the gallery. "They didn't just take pictures," Sophie said. "They took my sense of safety. Every room felt dangerous. Every person felt like a threat. I stopped existing, except as fear." Madison's defense tried everything: blame her mother's influence, claim mental illness, paint her as a victim of circumstances. But the jury saw through it. They saw the spreadsheets calculating profit margins on misery. They saw the chat logs where Madison laughed about victims' pain. They saw the girl who'd monetized cruelty. Guilty on all counts. The verdict came February 3rd, a date Jasmine would remember forever. Madison Pierce, 18 years old, faced 60 years in federal prison. The judge called it one of the most callous criminal enterprises he'd encountered, made worse by the defendant's age and privilege. Tyler Brooks got 15 years. Jake Morrison, 20 with his prior record. Ashley Chen received 5 years probation for her cooperation. Mrs. Pierce faced her own trial for public corruption, eventually convicted. Career destroyed. Legacy reduced to a cautionary tale about ambition consuming ethics. But the ripples spread wider. Operation Digital Shield expanded nationally. 17 similar rings were discovered and dismantled. Jasmine's law passed Congress with bipartisan support, signed in a Rose Garden ceremony. Jasmine couldn't attend. She had calculus that day. Life had to continue. After all, senior year didn't pause for federal cases or murdered fathers or congressional testimony. Jasmine still had homework, college applications, a prom she didn't plan to attend. The Washington Legal Clinic for Youth Rights opened in May, funded by donations that poured in after the trial. Jasmine cut the ribbon, wearing her father's Georgetown tie. The clinic would provide free legal services to young victims of cyber exploitation. David Washington's dream, realized through his daughter's courage. He always said lawyers should comfort the afflicted, Jasmine told the crowd. This clinic will be that comfort. Maria Gonzalez would run it, taking a pay cut from corporate law because some things mattered more than money. The first clients were already lined up: kids from other schools, other states, finding their voices. Graduation came in June. Jasmine walked across the stage in her father's blue hoodie beneath her gown. The crowd erupted, standing ovation from people who'd once whispered about the girl in her dead father's clothes. She'd earned their respect through preparation, not popularity. Her mother was there, finally able to reduce to just one job thanks to the life insurance settlement that came after David Washington's death was reclassified as murder. She cried when Jasmine accepted her diploma, seeing David in their daughter's determined stride. That night, Jasmine sat in her acceptance letter pile. Harvard, Yale, Georgetown. They all wanted the girl who'd brought down a criminal empire before turning 18. But she'd already chosen Michigan State, close to home, close to the clinic, close to the work that still needed doing. Her phone buzzed. Sophie Patel, texting from art camp she'd started painting again. Malik Johnson, sharing that he'd joined the swim team. Carlos Mendez, finally out to his parents, who'd surprised him with acceptance. They were healing, slowly, imperfectly, but genuinely. Madison Pierce served her time in federal facilities across the country, moved frequently for safety. Reports suggested she'd found religion, though Jasmine suspected that was strategic parole boards favored redemption narratives. It didn't matter. The victims had their justice. The system had evolved. The work continued. August arrived with acceptance letters and dorm assignments. Jasmine packed slowly, each item a decision about who she was becoming. The hoodie went first, not to wear, but to preserve. She had her own armor now. The voice recorder, her father's. Now hers went in her backpack. Michigan State was a two-party consent state for recordings. But she'd learned to document everything legally. Trust, but verify. Always verify. On her last night home, she returned to Lincoln High. The building looked the same, but everything had changed. New administration, new policies, mandatory digital citizenship classes. The server room had been retrofitted with federal-grade security. Cameras covered every angle. She stood where Madison had grabbed her hoodie during that assembly. The spot held no power anymore. It was just linoleum, worn by thousands of teenage feet. Unremarkable, except in memory. Justice might be slow, she said to the empty hallway, echoing her father's words. But it's inevitable. A security guard approached one of the new hires, background checked and trained. School's closed, miss. I know, Jasmine said. Just saying goodbye. Her phone rang. Detective Williams, who'd become something like family through the investigation. Thought you should know, he said. We just arrested another ringleader in Ohio, used the digital shield protocols. Kid heard about your case, came forward with evidence. The ripples spreading, the work continuing, justice moving like water slowly but inevitably reshaping the landscape. Thank you for telling me, Jasmine said. Thank you for starting this, Williams replied. Your father would be... I know, Jasmine interrupted gently. I know. She drove home through Detroit streets her father had traveled, past the courthouse where Madison was sentenced, beyond the community center where victims found their voices. The city sprawled around her, full of kids who might need protecting, predators who might need stopping, systems that might need changing. The light turned green. Jasmine drove forward, toward home, toward tomorrow, toward a future where 17-year-olds wouldn't need to build federal cases to find justice, where schools protected the vulnerable instead of the powerful, where fathers lived to see their daughters graduate. The recorder in her pocket captured the moment time, date, location, evidence of an ending that was really a beginning, evidence that one voice, properly prepared, could echo across a nation, evidence that justice, though sometimes delayed, could never be denied. Not anymore. Not on her watch.